guys, I'm Katie and wanted to show you in this video how to get connected to our Facebook page. So go over to our page and make sure that you like us and then follow us. When you follow us, check the box See First and keep your notifications on. Here on your phone, I'm going to show you how to like and follow our page. First you click like, then the three dots on the side, click following, make sure you enable notifications, and click See First so that we're the first thing that you see on your newsfeed. Be sure to like our Facebook page to get updates on what's happening at Family Church. Thank you so much for watching. Hi guys, I'm Katie and we wanted to show you a cool feature of how you can invite your friends to watch online with you while you're watching the live stream. You can click on this plus button where it will pull up a list of your friends where you can invite them to join you in watching the live stream. You can do the same on your mobile device. So if you go to this share button here, you will be given a list of your friends where you can send them an invite to watch along with you while you're watching the live stream. Thank you so much for watching, guys, and we hope you stay connected with us and make sure to like our Facebook page so that you can get all of the updates on what's happening here at Family Church. Hi guys, I'm Katie, and we at Family Church wanted to show you guys how to give on our live stream website. At live.ourfamily.church, you will see the option to give online on the right-hand side of your screen. You will be taken to a safe environment where you can see that your connection is secure. There are two options when you go to give. You can give one time or set up a reoccurring gift. So that's it, but we really want to know how we can support you and your family during this time. So please let us know and we'll continue to be praying for you guys.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to our show here today. It's our online Family Church broadcast once again, 7 o'clock. So happy you could join us. You know, we're always trying to do some different things, and I think you're going to really enjoy what we're going to do here today. A few announcements before we start. First of all, that share button, please hit that share button. We know that there's somebody out there that you're friends with that may be intrigued by something that is talked about here today. And so your sharing is your way of doing evangelism, really, of reaching out to others who may need, that God may have been leading to this story here today that we're going to tell. Also, thank you for giving. Your online giving just means so much to us, and it encourages us, and it helps us to continue to do what we're doing here today and so many other things to prepare for that time when we all get back together, and we can't wait for that. But we have a lot of things going on. So check out our homepage. You can see all of our online resources just by going to that homepage, ourfamily.church. And then you can see what's happening in children's area and the student area and with our online small groups. We got a lot of stuff going on. Well, one area that's particularly interesting to our guest here today is the children's area. I'm here with Brian Eman. Brian is coming on as our new, what's your title officially?
Kids pastor.
Kids pastor, I love that. And a little bit about Brian. Grew up, born in Pensacola, went to the University of West Florida, got a degree in math. Wow. Got his master's at Southeastern in divinity.
Yep.
And then married to Melissa,
Yep.
5 years, 2 kids, Shane, who's 3, and Tyler, who was 1. You've lived around a number of places. You got Tampa, North Carolina, and Chattanooga you just came from. You had we stole you away from an area in Chattanooga, but it seems like Florida is a draw to you. You kind of love Florida, even though you've lived in Pensacola. We're here in Central. You really like Florida, don't you?
It's great. I really don't like being cold, and so Florida really fits very well.
And when you left Chattanooga, I think you said it was like in the 50s.
It was 32 degrees
Oh,
the morning
32.
we moved from
Okay,
Chattanooga.
so that was
So-
that was your confirmation that you had made the right decision coming here. Well, everybody that we have on here today is it's going to be somehow related to staff. So we wanted to get the stories from the people on our staff. And every time I've seen you, you always seem to be giving the gospel to other kids and making sure. We're going to talk about that a little bit. But you have your own story about how you came to know Christ, and it wasn't as a child, was it?
No, it wasn't. I was a teenager. I was 14
Oh.
when I made a decision to follow Jesus. And
Yeah, not an easy age always to get a hold of somebody. But the groundwork that your parents had laid, it was there, right?
It was there. There was never a time that we didn't go to church. We were church every Sunday morning as kids, and didn't matter that I didn't like going to church and didn't have fun. It was we were there, and so mom and dad really, they laid a foundation for church is important. Church is something you're going to be at, and it didn't matter if we didn't like going. It was you're going, and so.
So even that you're going, sort of pressuring you to go, does tell you as a kid, this is something important, right? And that this is something that matters. Whether you're not fully listening or not, you were listening, and it was sort of seeds were being planted in your heart.
It was, yes, I remember I saw that this was important. It's what my mom and dad showed me, that this was important. They said, we're going to take time to do this, and you're going to go. And so I learned, from an early age that church was an important place to be, and we didn't, skip it to go do other things. It was, we're going to be at church. And
Yeah. So what happened at 14 that really got your attention and turned you around?
So I remember I was probably 11 was the first time I actually paid attention in church and heard the gospel. 11 was the first time I can remember hearing the gospel. And I spent 3 years not going towards the gospel and just rejecting it. And I have an older brother he's 3 years older than me. And I remember seeing him growing up. He, as far as I could tell, hated Christianity and didn't want anything to do with it. And so I remember one morning in church, I saw him give his life to Jesus.
Oh, wow.
And so seeing him give his life to Jesus is really what led me to give my life to Jesus. To see the change in him is what made me say, I need to stop running and start going towards him and follow after Jesus. And
Well, this is something our student ministry would be so happy to hear, that people of that age are giving their life to Christ. What is it that you remember that really sunk into you? It wasn't just your brother going forward, but that laid the foundation. But what was it at an early age that really made you say, I need to surrender my life? You hadn't made all the mistakes that us older people make when we give our lives to Christ, but what was the motivation behind that at your age?
I just remember hearing somebody explain it pretty simply, that I was a sinner and that I had sinned against God, and knowing that I had sinned against God, that without him, I was not going to get to heaven. And that, sin is, it didn't matter how big or how small it was. There wasn't this level of somebody sins worse, than anybody else. It's, even though I hadn't done some of the other things, I was still somebody who needed Jesus. And so it was a realization of I needed Savior. I needed to be saved from sin. And
Well, you think about the amount of sins that someone has at the age of 14. Probably a little bit of lying or a little bit of stealing or something like that, right? They don't seem as major as some others, but still, there was enough for you to say that you had fallen short of what God wanted for your life.
absolutely. It was definitely, I knew that I was not who I needed to be. I was not perfect. I was not God. And I knew that I was not going to make it just from the sin that I had. And I knew that I needed him.
Now, later on you get called into ministry. Is that like right at 14, or does that happen a little bit later?
No, that was, I was a senior in high school. I remember after I got saved, I got plugged into the youth group. And we had a youth pastor who he told me, he said, if you will read the Bible and you will pray, you will grow closer to God. And so I said, okay, and I took him up on that. I started reading the Bible every day. I started praying the Bible every day, and it was really over the next 3 years of reading the Bible and praying that I figured out that God was leading me into ministry. And so,
Wow.
Something it seems as simple as that, to read the Bible and pray, and God will show you. And I started reading the Bible and praying, and
Wow.
God showed me that this is where I needed to be. And
That's great. Now, when we talk about telling our stories, and that's part of what the Beyond purpose at our church is to encourage people to go tell their stories. Some people say, I don't have that dramatic of a story. I don't have, cops and addictions and marital infidelity. I don't have all that sort of stuff mixed up into my story. So I don't have a very good story. But your job, and why you're coming, is to make sure the kids accept Christ at a very early age. It doesn't seem very dramatic, but it's still important, right?
Oh, it's absolutely important. I mean, if you can avoid that, I can even think about now, I was 14, and I think about if I had just given my life earlier, there's so much more I could have done. Because it's so important to, start as soon as you can, especially parents. It's such an important job for parents to lay that foundation. It's so much easier to lay a foundation of a house before the walls are built. And so if you're trying to build a foundation after you've already built these walls, you can do it, but it's a lot harder. And so
that's a really good point, because a lot of times people say, well, we're hiring that kids pastor to lead our kids to Christ. That's his job. But it's not really your job, is it? It's more the parents.
Absolutely. I mean, if you just look from a simple time factor, parents will spend so much more time with their kids than I ever will. And so it's so important for parents to be the ones who are really, pushing the message of Jesus. And, part of my job as kids pastor is to help parents. I'm somebody who's going to be their biggest encourager, to come alongside them, to help them through the process. But I can't do it for them. I tell people all the time, there are 2 kids in kids ministry that can say the kids pastor is responsible for discipling them, and that's Shane and Tyler.
Your kids,
Yes,
right?
my
Yeah,
kids.
that's great. So what do you encourage then parents to do at home to make sure that happens?
They definitely need to be praying with their kids, reading the Bible with their kids, and helping lead that discussion. One thing I really encourage parents is, as often as kids have questions about the gospel, always stop and answer them. Whatever you're doing, nothing is more important than taking time to tell your kids about Jesus, especially when they're asking questions. Because if they're asking questions, they're ready to listen.
That's great. Well, we really appreciate you coming on staff. We're looking forward to what you're going to do and help to encourage in the lives of our kids. So, Brian Eman, thank you for joining us. And we can't wait till we're actually back together and you can be in full force. But you're doing a lot of great things online. The takeover of the kids after the services on Sunday is amazing. And you got PB&J, which is now for preschoolers, right? And tell me, when is that going to be?
That's going to be on Thursdays. We're going to release that through our Facebook page. And so make sure that everybody's following us on our Facebook page if you've got kids.
That's in the afternoon on Facebook?
Yes.
And they'll be able to watch that at any time?
Yep. It's something that'll
that's
be on
great.
demand.
Well, thank you for all that. We appreciate you being here. The next person we have up here is Rachel Smith. Rachel was born here in Orlando, and she went to the University of Mobile. Well, before that, she went to Dr. Phillips High School right here in town. Was in the magnet program of the performing arts. At the University of Mobile, she got a vocal performance. Is that a major? Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Okay. And you and your family have been coming here since 2008, but we also kind of took you away from First Baptist Church of Sumter, South Carolina, where you were leading worship up there. So thanks for being with us here today.
I'm excited.
People have probably already seen you if they've been watching any of our worship services. You've been front and center and singing, and everyone just appreciates what you bring to worship. So we're excited to what you're doing now and what you're going to continue to do. Now, you're young, and you have a story also of how you met Christ, and Tell us a little bit
Yes,
about
sir.
that.
Well, when I was growing up as a kid, young, my parents and I, we didn't really go to church. It wasn't until my mom actually, so my parents worked at Disney, and my mom, someone shared the gospel with my mom when I was 7, and so it wasn't until, I don't know, I was 7 years old that I really heard the gospel for the first time. And so it was at that point that my family started going to church, but it wasn't really a commitment until a little bit later on. And so when I was around 12 or 13, we found this church, and my mom and I started coming, and I think I knew about Jesus, but I didn't understand what it really meant to be a born-again believer and really give your life over to him. And so I was invited to go to a youth service here, and my good friend Anna was leading worship at the time, and I remember watching her and just thinking, wow, she has an amazing voice. But I'd never been to a worship service before, and I was really confused because, I mean, I knew about concerts, I knew good music, and of course, I'd grown up with parents that worked at Disney, and so I really loved excellent music and always wanted to be a Disney princess and all of that. But it was the first time that I saw people closing their eyes and raising their hands, and I was wondering what they were singing about. I'd never really heard that before. And I just remember weeping, just being overwhelmed with emotion and not really understanding why. And I remember being embarrassed because, like, I was just ugly crying, and I was just afraid of what people around me were going to think, like, what is wrong with her? But I think I was really overwhelmed with the presence of the Lord, and I didn't know that was him until later. But in that same service, I think the youth pastor at the time Joel came up and shared the gospel and talked about it in such a personal way and shared how Jesus didn't just die for the sins of everybody, but Jesus died for you. And he talked about, the power of inserting your name in the gospel. That Jesus died on the cross for Rachel, and Jesus paid the price for Rachel's sin. And but he conquered it, and he rose again. And if I believe in him, I could have this relationship with God the Father. And I just was so blown away by what God did. And so I think it was at that point that I really understood that the gospel was personal. It wasn't just something that you go to church and hear about in kind of a general way.
So you were how old when this was happening?
So I'm going to be 25 next week.
Well, I wasn't asking you. I never ask a woman's age.
Oh.
Especially on camera. But what were you at the time? 25, everyone.
I was like, I was probably 13.
13?
Yes,
okay.
sir.
So at 13, this is what's interesting. Worship is what led you to the Lord.
Yes.
So there was something about that act of worship, of seeing it
Yes.
in person and experiencing it, that you were going, there's something deeper.
Oh, yeah.
People were closing their eyes, raising their hands.
Oh, yeah. It was
You know-
powerful. I mean, people were crying. They were on their knees. It was just this like silent thing happening in the room, but you could feel it.
And you were sort of saying, I want that. I want what
Oh,
they
yes.
have. I want that in my own life.
Oh, yeah, I craved it. I began to just really pray, because I knew that I had a gift to sing ever since I was little. And I went through a time where I wanted to be famous. This was right when American Idol came out.
Yeah,
and
right.
I looked up to all those people and dreamed about doing that, and my desires changed. I mean, I just didn't want to do that anymore. And I remember my friends at the time, they were like, because they were in it with me, they're like, let's be famous, and we used to go to auditions in Orlando together and
Right.
things like that just for fun. And I just lost that. I was like, I want to use my gift to tell other people about Jesus, because it just changed my life.
So what did you notice, different? Because, this is a tough time because you're middle school, right? You're heading into high school.
Yes.
You're going into high school. Dr. Phillips, lots of temptations. How did your faith help you to get through that time better than if you had not had that faith?
Absolutely. I was completely, like I said, I was changed. My desires changed. I had this desire to worship and to tell other people about Jesus. I was so passionate about telling other people about Jesus. I actually lost some friendships right when I became a Christian, because I was like, I just can't wait any longer. I want other people to know what I know. And walking into high school, I didn't party. I didn't do the things that other kids were doing. I didn't find my worth in what I wore and who I hung out with, and it kind of excluded me from a lot of the things, and that was hard for me because I I don't like to be excluded. My mom will say, you've had FOMO ever since you were born, fear of missing out. And so it was hard for me to let that go and realize now that I'm a believer, I'm going to do things differently, and it's not going to look the same. And what I talk about with other people was not the same as my friends. And but the Lord gave me a friend group here at the church, and we had this youth choir that was just booming at the time, and the Lord gave me opportunities to start growing my gift. And
Boy, that's so key. If you're starting to make relationships with other kids, in
Yes.
high school that are believers, it helps you to get through that time.
Yeah.
Because people may ostracize me and not like what I believe, but I still have a group of friends who love me for who I am
Sure.
and what I believe. And that's going to help you get through all that. Now, your call to ministry and some of the things you've been doing, that was separate. When did you really feel that confirmation that I'm going to go into ministry, I want
Yeah.
to sing for the Lord and do those things?
It wasn't until I went to Passion, I think my sophomore or junior year with our youth group, and they were talking about call to missions at this conference, and I remember feeling the pull, like I wanted to give my entire life, every breath, to telling other people about Jesus, and it didn't really register to me that was a call to ministry, because I just figured, well, if you're a believer, why isn't, that's just a normal progression.
We're all called to it, right?
Right, and so we're all called to that. And so I think just my passion for sharing the gospel, and it just was all consuming. All the other stuff that I wanted to do before, be a famous singer, go to Nashville and be a recording artist. Those are still things that would be fun to do, but it's not this like driving thing.
Right.
I think that was just what I wanted to do. It just made sense. I
Right.
want my career to be sharing the most important message of all time.
And as someone that's worked in entertainment myself, I know that call and that drive, and it's empty. It's very empty. And, the amount of fulfillment you get,
Yeah.
serving people here just on the ground level, where they're at, wherever it is that God's called you. There are many incredible stories that come out of this. And if God wants to call you to that next level, whatever that may be, the big, the American Idol, the whatever it might be, he will. He knows where to find you, and he knows how to get the contacts to you.
Yeah.
Just make your passion to serve him. This is what I find. Make your passion to serve him where you are,
Absolutely.
and let him call you to where he wants you to go.
Oh, yeah.
And he'll do it.
Give him all the glory. It all came from him to begin
Right.
with. So I've really loved experiencing. And the more that you worship, the more you understand it's not a performance. I think that's something that
Wow.
I didn't understand until later was, this training that I got in college. I was a vocal performance major, and it was
Yeah.
all about, how do you look and how do you move and, how do you get people's attention? And that was something I didn't realize was actually affecting my worship, that God didn't care about that. He cared about my heart, and laying that down before him and just saying, God, these are the gifts you've given me, and this is the platform you've given me, but God, I understand that it's from you, and I just want it to be used for your glory.
Well, we could do a whole half hour on worship and what it means, but when you worship, I can tell this. I can tell that it's a surrender. And that's what it should be when we all worship. We're all worshiping. You're just the one on stage with, the Marias and the Annas and the Cats,
Sure.
right? But you're just encouraging us to do that, to surrender during that time. And it's not how well you sing. We're all worshipers, right?
That's right.
Not all of us should be leading worship with a microphone in front of our mouth, but we were all worshipers. And I just love that worship is what led you to the Lord. And the other thing I really love is that someone shared the gospel with your mom, who then shared it with you. The ripple effect of one person telling another person about Jesus can make a difference. And here you are today. I don't even know if you know that person who talked to your mom. Do you?
I do,
You
yes.
do? Okay, great.
Amazing man. He shares it with everybody. And
Good.
I want to be like that.
Yeah.
It's powerful.
And it can have an effect, and it can change lives. So we need to continue to tell our stories every
Absolutely.
opportunity we get.
Yes.
And who knows it's going to affect. Thanks for being here. It's so good. I know we're going to see more of you worshiping and everything here on stage. And we just look forward to how other ways that God's going to use you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here, Rachel. Next up, we have Sherry Hevner. Sherry was born in Naples, and she went to Colorado Christian University. And then she got her undergrad, and then she went to Concordia University, where she got a education in leadership. She got her master's. She's married to Tony for 31, maybe 32 years. Did we decide on 31?
31.
All right, we like 31. Two kids, 26 and 29 years old, Alexis and Emily, and also a grandparent like myself. See, grandparents don't have to look old, do they? I mean, we can look
Absolutely
young
not.
and vibrant and everything else. And while you're not on staff, you are married to somebody on staff, which makes you a really important part of ministry. I mean, what our wives and our husbands go through being here with us being on staff is quite a commitment. There's a sacrifice and everything. So we appreciate everybody that's behind the scenes, sort of supporting the people that are on stage and leading groups of people. So your story is probably a little different than everyone else's. Tell us a little bit about how you came to know Jesus.
I would love to. Thank you for the opportunity to share my story anytime I can do that.
Yeah.
I am the youngest of four, and my mom had a negative Rh factor to her blood, and my father had positive, and consequently, I was born with 7 fingers. There were 4 miracles at my birth, and one shortly after, which is another story. We'll talk about that another time.
All right.
But I did not grow up in the church in those early years. However, back in those days, they had a bus ministry. And that is when the bus would come around and pick up children and take them to church. And so my mom allowed my brother and I was 4 years old, to go to church. And that's where I experienced church for the first time. And so that first year at church, I was in children's church. And the norm was at the end of church that they would bring all the children into the big church, during the invitation time. And that was very special because I got to see what that looked like as a young child. And I don't remember what Bible story that they were teaching on that particular Sunday when I turned 5. However, I do remember that I wanted Jesus, and I wanted him to be my daddy. And I didn't have a baggage of life at 5, and I didn't understand all the significance or all the biblical terms or anything like that. All I knew is I wanted Jesus. And so at 5, I understood the difference between right and wrong, and I understood that I wanted him to be my daddy, and I asked Jesus into my heart. And what's really important about that is, Jesus said that in this world you will have trouble. And I didn't know what kind of trouble that was going to look like for me, but God did. And as I started to grow and I started to experience what the world's view of someone who was not born normal, someone having 7 fingers, I experienced a lot of issues. Children were cruel, and as most of us have experienced in our life, and I experienced those things. But the difference was that there was a voice in my heart, the Holy Spirit, that was teaching me and growing me in those younger years, so that when I experienced those hardships, I would have joy as opposed to sorrow. And so it didn't take away the troubles of life. I still had troubles of life. I still experienced the pain of life because we live in this broken world. However, the difference was that I had joy and I had hope. And that hope made it possible for me to get through all of those moments. And so that's when he became my Savior at 5, but it wasn't until I was 17 that I wanted Jesus to be Lord of my life. And there's a difference. I wanted him to take control and to lead my life, and I wanted to live for him and to experience what it meant to follow Jesus with all of me and not just part of me.
So at 5, you accept him as your dad.
Yes,
But then at 17, he's your Lord.
absolutely.
And that was a big difference. But having that father there with you helped you to get through all of those difficult, the abuse and the teasing and all that sort of stuff. It was good to have that father knowing that he loved you when it
Yes.
didn't seem anyone else loved you.
Yep.
But now it's Sherry is really sort of surrendering her whole life at 17. What was it at 17 that sort of made that more needed for you?
Well, after I met Jesus at 5, my mom and both my parents started attending church. And so I went to church because my parents went to church. And so during that time from 5 all the way through until I left for college, I was at church on a regular basis. So I was growing in my faith. I was learning. I was experiencing. I had people to walk alongside of me to teach me and to help me to grow. I had my parents and the support of that. And I hit rock bottom when I was 16. I had an experience that I would consider probably the worst experience in my life. If looking back over the 53 years I've been on this planet and in this journey, it was probably the pinnacle moment when I was 16. And I had a choice to make. I could move forward and trust in the things that I knew to be true and what the Holy Spirit was teaching me in my heart, or I could give in and I could walk away. And the Holy Spirit just met me right where I was at and showed me that Psalms 139 is so, so important, teaching me that I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and that He has a plan and a purpose. And because of that, I was able to heal and I was able to grow. And at that moment, I said, Lord, if you can take an ugly situation and make it beautiful and make me beautiful, then I'm going to give you everything that I have.
But how many times as a kid were you going, why me? Why this?
All the time.
All the time.
All the time I struggled with those questions, and especially when I would be teased or, just false statements being said to me, and when those moments would come, I would find myself in my room crying, going, why me? Why, Lord, why did you make me like this? And now when I look back, of course, it's so much easier to look back and see all the different pieces of my life and where He has taken me on this incredible, adventurous journey I've been on. And all of the moments that I thought I was alone, and I wasn't alone at all. God was there all the time, showing me and teaching me. And I think that because I met Jesus at such a young age, that foundation was already there. He gave me hope in before I even experienced anything. So those are the things I could hold on to at the worst times of my life. Even though I experienced all of that, I had someone with me, even when I felt like I was most alone. And that's what carried me. And I didn't realize it. I didn't realize all this in those moments. I didn't know what was going on fully. And I have that ability to look back now and see all of that. But man, I am so grateful that God saved me and that He had a plan and a purpose, and that I didn't get in the way, and I didn't always listen to the voices that are trying to distract me. Every day, I had to get up every day, and every day was a new day. And I had to claim His promises every single day.
So you're a teacher now.
Yes.
And it's high school?
Absolutely.
Okay. And what do you think your Seven Fingers teaches the kids when they see you now, or maybe you encounter other kids that are dealing with their own sort of situations?
I love teenagers, and I believe that I have a story to tell to my kids that breaks walls that most people don't, because I can tell all of my story about my arm and what God has done in and through me, and the miracles that He's shown. And even though I'm in a public school, I can share about Christ because I can share my story. And because of that, it breaks walls down. There isn't anything I've never done. I've done everything from skydiving to I played softball till I was 40, and and all in between. And it shows them that they can do anything. That they just believe in themselves is part of it. Obviously, Christ is the center and is the key. And sometimes I get those moments where I can share about my faith and how that has taken me on this journey, and why I'm where I am at today as opposed to where I was when I was a teenager. But it does open doors for me, and it breaks down walls so we can communicate in a way that they trust me because it's my story. Nobody can argue with my story.
Right.
So
I think, a lot of times we look at things like this and we go, well, that's a birth defect. But it's really, there's a birth effect that it has on you, on other people, and you can use that in your story in order to show them the grace and the love of God. You were fearfully and wonderfully made, Psalm 139, how perfect. for you to look at that there are really no mistakes, right?
That's right.
That there was a purpose behind all of this. You got a beautiful family. I mean, you did okay marrying Tony.
I did.
You know,
Excellent
not
job,
everything
actually.
can be perfect, but you know, there are no mistakes. There are reasons behind all of it, and it's really our job to sort of find out why,
Yeah.
to discover our purpose, and why God has made us this way, whatever it may be. We're all dealing with our own thing. That could be an effect or a defect or whatever we look at it, and so we can learn, we can tell our story, and we can make a big difference.
Well, the world sees me as broken, and they attribute terms like handicapped or defect or any of that kind of thing, terms to try to describe. But the reality is that I'm already perfect. I was perfect before I was born.
Hello.
And when I trust the truths that God has already laid out in His Word, when I trust those things, then I can see myself the way God sees me.
Yeah.
You know, I wonder, Troy, I really wonder one day when we get to heaven,
Okay.
I wonder if the normal will be 7 fingers and not 10. You know, it could be.
The normal will be Jesus.
Absolutely.
That'll be the normal. And we're all going to be like him in that way. So thank
Yeah.
you so much for coming here and telling us that. Look, many of you out there are watching and probably identify with any of these stories here. They're important. We encourage you to tell your story to others. There's a reason you went through those things in your life so that you can glorify God and tell everyone that He loves them, He has a purpose for them, and He wants to be a part, have a relationship with them for the rest of their lives. So thanks for joining us here. Tomorrow, worship on Friday, and it's going to be wonderful. Please come and join us for that. Also, make sure you continue to check out that Brian talked about, that PB&J, the Preschoolers Kids Facebook page, and play that for your kids, and they'll enjoy it. And once again, we hope they come to know Jesus at a very early age. Thanks for being here. Bye-bye.